Alright pilots, Nick's back for the next installment of a beginner's guide for the Su-27 and 33 flankers. So we did our takeoffs, landings, our key bindings and cockpit familiarization. We're ready to move on to the fun stuff, right? We're going to do some BVR and BFM. We're not going to get into the deep aspects of counter flying and all that. We're just going to get weapons deployment, how to deploy each of the different weapons. We're going to show you how to use the radar, but we're not going to get in depth with the radar because, again, this is just a beginner's guide to get you started. You can get into the advanced stuff once you're just more comfortable with the plane. So, first of all, we're back in our 27. Let's go ahead and arm up for some air-to-air engagement. So, for the outers, you can either put your ECM pods on, which the ECM in the flankers, these pods actually work quite well. They are helpful. If you're using them, people will have a tough time getting a good solid lock on you until they're a lot closer. So this allows you to get a little bit closer to where your missiles are a little bit more effective, because you will be outranged for the most part by a lot of different planes out there using AMRAAMs and so on. So the pods are helpful, but for today we're just going to go full missiles. We're going to put our R-73s on here. We will remove our pods. So the R-73 Archer is a Fox 2. It's an infrared. So Fox 2 is a missile that means it requires no guidance from you. It uses its own seeker head, and it's an infrared seeker head. So it's like an American Sidewinder, like an AIM-9. Those are the missiles that give you tone. That's where you hear the tone. I've got tone, and so on and so forth. That's the signal from the seeker head saying it sees an infrared signature in front of it, and it is locked onto that signature. So it looks for heat. The R-73 is also a high off-bore sight R-73, so it's like a 9X. You do not have to have just a rear aspect, low aspect shot. You can shoot them from very hard angles using your helmet mount to get good locks with it. It's a very, very capable missile. Next we have probably the ninja weapon, what everybody enjoys about the flankers. This is the R-27 ET. So the ET is pretty cool because this is also a IR missile. This is a Fox 2. It's a fire and forget. It uses its own guidance to track the target. But it's an extended range. So the cool things about IR missiles is they do not give a radar warning, receiver warning to the enemy you're shooting at, unless you get a actual radar lock. Then they're going to know you have a radar turned on and you're looking at them. You'll get the RWR ping warnings that something is looking at you and then is tracking you. With an IR missile, you don't have to use your radar. You can just use the seeker head as a locker, and we'll get into that up in the air a little bit. An advanced technique, I'll get into this a little bit because there are two different radar modes in the flankers. So you have the regular radar, and then you have the electro-optical sensor, which is the big screen right here. You can see this big ball right here, and we'll do an outside look here in a minute so you can see it. That's the electro-optical sensor. It's basically like an IR TV screen on the front of the jet. So you can turn that on, and it's looking out into the space in front of you like a radar would, but it's just looking for IR signatures. So if you lock something up with the EO sensor turned on and not the radar, they're not going to know you have them locked. They don't know you're passively tracking them. If you fire a heater missile with that lock, they'll never know the missile's even coming. So the ET is an extended range, so it's a very long distance IR missile, and that's because it's bigger and has a bigger booster, but also the IR tracker uses the tracking off the electrical optical sensor and then goes pit bull, and the enemy will never know it. So it's like a long distance, no warning missile. So that's why it's very capable, and it's very tricky. You can fly around in the mountains against other players. You can get an EO, electrical optical sensor lock on them, fire an ET from pretty far away, and they'll just be flying along and they'll just explode and think you're cheating. All right, next is your standard radar missiles. These are the R-27Rs, and the ER is just an extended range, better version of that. So always take the best tool for the job. We're going to load up with 4 of these. These are standard Fox 1s. So a Fox 1 is a missile that you have to lock onto the target with a radar. So you are going to giving them RWR warnings. They're going to know when you're looking at them. They're going to know when you have them locked up, and they're also going to know when you fire a missile. So a Fox 1 requires guidance from the radar that locked it. So you have to maintain the lock until the missile detonates on target. So you can break your lock once the missile either gets lost or misses, or it hits, then it's going to automatically break the lock. So basically they're the same as the AIM-7 Sparrow style missiles in the American arsenal. So Fox 1 requires radar guidance all the way to target. Fox 2 is an infrared and does not require any guidance from the jet and uses an IR signature seeker head on the missile by itself. Now there's a Fox 3, which are the most modern missiles, and they are a mixture of a Fox 1 and kind of a Fox 2. So they use radar signature, they don't use IR, but the Fox 3 seeker head has its own radar built into it. So what you'll do is you'll lock up a target using your radar, and then you'll fire that missile, and it's going to use the guidance of the jet as long as it possibly can. If it loses the track from the jet, so if you have to break off and go defensive, so you're going to break the lock, then the missile will turn on its own radar to finish the track as best it can. So that's a Fox 3. So it's kind of like a semi-fire and forget. You want to stay locked on as long as you can to give it good guidance, but it has its own guidance as well. And some missiles are better than others at that. So we don't have a Fox 3 on this flanker, but the J11 version of the flanker, which is the Chinese flanker, does have the R-77, and that is a Fox 3 missile. Just for a little insight. And also the American AMRAAM, the AIM-120s, those are Fox 3s, and they're very effective. So one of the things you could do is you could lock somebody with a TWS track, which is a passive track. It's not actually locked on, so they're not going to know you're doing it. But then when you fire this missile, then the radar is going to automatically turn on to give that guidance, and then they're going to know they've been locked up. So if you do a TWS track in whatever plane you're in, and you fire a Fox 3, they're not going to know you fired that Fox 3 because it's using a passive track off of a TWS, which is track while scan. And then when the missile gets close enough that the onboard radar turns on that Fox 3, then they're going to know. But by then the missile's going to be really close, so they might not have time to be defensive enough to dodge it. And when a missile's radar turns itself on because it's close enough, that's called going pit bull. And that's when an enemy's RWR radio warning receiver will go nuts, give you extreme warnings that there is a missile guiding onto you and it's close. So all right, that's a little more advanced, but that's still just some basics to understand some of the difference in missiles. So we have 3 Fox 2s and 4 Fox 1s. And this will be the best loadout we could do in the flanker, so let's load it up.
Request rearming.
And let's get into our key bindings. So we did our basic flight bindings, flaps and landing gear and all that good stuff. So now let's go into our controls, and now we're going to get into something new. We're not going to go back over the gear and the flaps and all that. We're just going to add some new bindings now. So first we're going to look at modes. So there'll be 6 modes you'll want to bind. If you're using your HOTES, you'll want to find a good 4-way, or I use a 4-way and a 2-way. So in the first mode is navigation mode. That's your basic symbology for going to waypoints and flying the plane. 2 is your air-to-air beyond visual range mode. So this is what you're going to be using to use your radar and to fire long-distance missiles. So basically your R-27s and your ERs. Then there is combat vertical scan. So if you get into a merge or you're really close to them, like you can actually see them. If you're having trouble locking them, you can't really mess around with your TDC on your radar and all that stuff. You can put it in vertical scan, and it's basically going to put a box on your HUD that is looking out your nose and upward. So if you're in a turn fight, that's how you're going to try to get your nose below the target so that your radar is going to auto-lock them. Then we've got bore sight mode. That's going to put a little circle in the middle of the HUD, and if you just get the target inside that circle, the radar is going to attempt to lock any target that's in that circle. And then there is HMD helmet mount. So that's going to put that circle that's on the HUD on your actual helmet mount, so you can move it around with your head and attempt to get locks with it. You still have to hit your lock-on button for these locks, but it shows you where you have to have your symbology to get that lock-on to work. When you're doing merges and dogfighting, BFM, you're going to be using that helmet mount a lot to try to get off-bore sight R-73 shots with it. You also want to bind your weapon fire. Now, most jets will have like a trigger that shoots a couple of things, and it'll have a pickle button that shoots a couple of things. In the Russian vehicles, the trigger fires everything, and it just fires whatever weapon you have selected. So there's your weapon fire, and then there's a button right here called weapon change. So whatever you have, whatever missile you have selected, which it'll have symbology on the HUD that shows you what it is. When we're in the air, I'll show you that again as well. And when you're ready to fire, you just hold down the trigger. And with Russian stuff, you don't just click the trigger and it goes off. You have to hold down the trigger and just hold it there until the weapon it activates and releases. Then you can let off the trigger. And again, it'll just fire whatever weapon you have selected. And the weapon you have selected may or may not change the symbology on the HUD depending on what you're firing. All right, next we're going to look at lock and unlock. So there's target lock. We'll want that one. And then return to search. That's your unlock. You want to bind both of those in a very easy place. Then there's radar zoom in and out. That'll be very important as well to bind. You'll also want to find countermeasure release. Now, if you bind this, you hit the button on countermeasure release, it's going to release a flare and a chaff. So if you hit it twice, it's going to dispense 2 flares and 2 chaff. You can also get more detailed, and you can add a chaff button and a flare button if you know the difference. For now, just countermeasure release. You'll release a chaff and a flare. That'll get you covered for now. And later in advanced lessons, you can learn the difference between chaff and flare, and you can start using those in tandem as they're needed. All right, there's our air brake. Now for our radar, we're going to want a button here that turns on the radar. It's called radar on-off. You'll want that bound. Then there's another one called electrical-optical system on-off. You'll want to bind that one. Then you'll want to bind this one that says radar RWS TWS mode selection. So that's range while scan, which is your standard radar mode. If you lock something up, they know you locked them up. And TWS is track while scan, and that's the one where you can kind of passively track them without letting them know you are. And then the other one is radar pulse repeat frequency. So when you hit that, you're going to change between high, medium, and interval. That's an advanced thing. Just bind it for now, and then don't worry about it. When you get into more advanced lessons, you'll learn about changing your pulse repeat on your frequency of your radar and how you'll be able to utilize that. All right, I do believe. Oh, also, you'll want to bind one button for cannon. So like I said, the trigger fires whatever you have selected. There's a weapon change button that changes and cycles through all your weapons except for the gun. To activate the gun, even if you're in air-to-air or air-to-ground mode, you have to have a button for that. And when you hit that, it eliminates whatever symbology and whatever you had going on and just switches the plane into firing the gun mode. So it's one button. It's really easy to use. If you need to use the gun in air-to-air, you can just hit that button really quick and boom, you're there. If you have a target locked and you switch to gun, the gun symbology will appear as long as you're close enough. If it's not close, if it doesn't show you the actual gun stuff yet, it's because you're just too far away from the target. It'll appear when you get closer. All right, that's the keybinds for air-to-air. We loaded up with all the best weapons for air-to-air, and pretty much the only weapons you're going to deploy on the flankers for the most part. So let's get in the air and let's go over the symbology and the button usage in the air and the radar, and we'll get you all squared away, and you'll start shooting bandits down before you even know it. I will see you in the sky, pilots. All right, pilots, here we are. We're up in the air. We are all set up. We've got our flanker. We're paused right now. And again, that's the electrical optical sensor right there. Just so you know what it looks like. So let's go through our stuff really quick here. So right now we're in mode 1. This is navigation mode. You can see that we are going 440 kilometers an hour. And we're increasing in speed a little bit. We're at 6,120 meters, so that's about 20,000 feet. And we have our data link here. So let's now go to mode 2, which is our air-to-air mode, our BVR mode, beyond visual range. So now we have switched to BVR mode, and you can see our weapon selector is showing our 4 27 ERs that we have selected, and they're green, so we know we have them selected. Also on our HUD, we can see here in the lower right-hand corner, it says 27 ER, so we know exactly what kind of missile we have, and it's stating that we are in beyond visual range here. So we don't have anything going on here, and that's because we haven't turned on our radar, because unless you're going to use your radar, it's not a good idea to fly around with it on all the time, because if your radar's on and looking for stuff, it's also emitting radiation, so other people that are looking for radars are going to be able to see it too. So for starters, we're not going to turn on our radar. We're going to turn on our electrical optical sensor. And now you can see it's just like a radar, except it says EO, electrical optical sensor, and it's in scan. So this is all it can do. There's no settings you can change on the electrical optical sensor, because it's just looking out as far as it can, looking for IR signatures. And if you look down here, we see our data link has changed into a radar scanning screen. And we can see it's at 10, so that's 10 kilometers out. So that's about 6 miles is what it's looking for. So this means it would be 6 miles out to here. If we use our radar zoom, now it's out to 20, so that'd be about 12 or so miles roughly. There's 50, which would be like, I think, 31 miles. 100 kilometers is going to be about, it's like 60 something miles, and then that's as far as it goes out. Alright, so that is the electrical optical sensor. And our TDC slew, which we did in our key bindings in the axes, or if you don't have axes, you can set it to 4 buttons. The TDC slew moves its cursor around. And that's because this down here is just a data link. This gives you data on stuff that your instruments see, and also what friendly flight people might see as well. You'll have data from them on there as well, so it'll help you find targets. If you do see targets, they're going to appear right here on your HUD. So if it's an enemy, it'll be a line of check marks. The amount of check marks determines the size. So if it's 2 check marks, it's a small plane. 3 check marks, it's a medium plane, and 4 check marks is a big plane. If it's 2 bars on top of each other, that's a friendly. So that's how you know that it's IFF, interrogate, friendly, or foe. So if you see a target that is like 3 hashtag there, 3 little check marks, but there's a row on top of it together, that means it's a friendly. Don't lock it, don't shoot at it. Be careful. If it's a single, that means it's an enemy. Alright, so let's see the difference now. We're going to turn off the EO sensor, and we're going to turn on our radar. So now we see it's RL for radar. You can also see, did you see that? We already got enemies showing up in front of us now. We're in scan mode, so this would be the RWS, the range while scan. And it is in pulse mode ILV, so it's bouncing between high and medium. So we can move our cursor around, and if we want to, we can attempt to lock something. Let's look down here at our data link. You can see, we can see those targets out here flying around us. And sometimes they're going to disappear and reappear. If somebody's flying directly perpendicular from your radar signal, sometimes the radar will lose that track because it's called the notch or beaming. So that's why your radar is going to lose track from time to time when they're flying directly across the nose. That's also something you should remember when you're trying to dodge missiles. Getting to the notch of the radar that's trying to lock you can make them lose lock. Alright, so let's get the cursor over this. You can see it's a single set. It's 2 check marks, and there's not a double set, so that is an enemy. We'll put the cursor over it if it appears, and then I'm going to hit my lock button to attempt to lock it up, and we'll see the symbology change. Which also, we're having trouble. I'm also not flying forward because I have an active pause here, so I'm not going forward to go through this stuff. We can also see, let's go ahead and hit our weapon change, and now we can see it rotated to the outer pylons. Those are selected, and that's the R-73s. So those are the heat seekers. We'll hit it one more time. We see it's 27 ET, so those are the 2 extended range heaters that we have, and then we'll hit it one more time, and we're back onto our 27 ERs. So that's how you can tell the difference on the missiles. So there we go. We got a lock. So now we can see, looking through our HUD, he's out here. That's where he is. He's locked up through the radar right now, so he knows we're locking him. Now we have some new symbology. We've got this caret right here. This is a ranging caret. This first mark right here is the max range. This next one is, we just lost the lock because he's moving and we're not. This is the minimum abort range. So if you get your caret to down past this first one, this will allow you to fire. You'll get an LA, which is launch authority, meaning you do have a shot. Once you get through this second one, the minimum abort range, or the MAR, So if you hear someone say, I got them inside the MAR, they mean the minimum abort range. If you get the caret below that, that means your launch authority is letting you know that your chance of kill or chance the missile will be successful is a much higher percentage chance, because at that range the missile is going to have more energy boost and maneuverability to make sure it hits that target. And this is the min-max range, so if the caret gets below that, for this missile, you will no longer be able to fire that missile accurately because it's too close. So what we're going to do here, and you can also see when you change weapons, it's also going to change the cone here, which is your weapon range, or the WAS. Or I'm sorry, the WES. Not the WAS, my bad. The WES. So we'll switch weapons. Now we hit the R-73s. We can see it's a much smaller cone. It's also because we're zoomed out. If we zoom in, we can see it's relevant to the size of the radar on your screen here. And the ETs, you can see, have a much bigger range. Now it's a heater, but they have that much range. So make sure if you're going to use those ETs, that you use the electrical optical sensor to lock them. That way the enemy doesn't know you're attacking them. It's just the best way to be successful with them. You can also just use them in a dogfight because they are still a heater missile. They're a very good heater missile. So you don't always have to ninja shoot them. You can just use them when you need to use them. So what we're going to do now is we are going to fly towards the enemy, which we'll just bring them up on the map so we can see here where they are. They're out here in front of us a decent ways. You can see they're about 28 miles out, and they're flying in formation. So what we're going to do is we're going to unlock, we're going to fly towards the enemy. We're going to try to get a radar missile off on one of them so that we can kill one before we even get near them by using our box, locking the target. And if you can't get a lock right away, don't worry about it, just keep trying. Once we have the lock, getting into a good launch authority and firing that missile. Also, you can go into the TWS lock. So if I hit my TWS button, you see now it says TWS. Now if you just get this over the target, now it just bumped over here. That jet is still over here, but because it's gone to the middle, I didn't hit the lock button. This is how you passively track it in a Russian plane. So we just lost it. But that is the TWS passive track. If I actually lock it, it's gonna know that I'm locking it. I'm gonna give it that signal. So you just want to hover it over there until it snaps on, and then you have a passive track, and it'll show them. But we're not worried about TWS right now. We're just going to go back to the normal RWS range while scan. We're going to try to get a good shot off. Also, the high, low, and innervate, we're just going to go back to there, because that means it's going to be switching between high and medium, so you don't have to worry about knowing which one to go to. We're going to skip that for now. That's advanced stuff. So here we go. We're unlocking, and we are flying forward. And we're going to try to maintain a decent nose-on position of our enemy. We're going to bring the radar back out a little ways. So there we go. We can see one right there. Now I'm going to hit the lock button, and we did not get a lock yet. We'll get a little bit closer and try again. Yep, there we go. We got him. So now let's maneuver so that that plane is actually in front of us. Double check our weapon selector, and we see we have our 427 ER selected. We can also check it on the HUD. Now I'm going to go ahead and hit the blower and get going some speed. The faster you're moving when you fire your missile, the more energy the missile has, because the missile starts off at the speed you're flying and boosts off from there. So if you're going to fire a missile, especially at long range, you're going to want to get going fast before you do so. So we're just going to fly at them now. You see our caret is moving down. Once we get past that max range, it's going to give us a launch authority. And I'm going to wait a little bit, and I'm going to get closer, because I want to get closer to that MAR. I want to get closer to that minimum abort range to fire that missile. And we also have to remember these are Fox 1s, so we can't lose the lock. We got to hold the lock all the way until detonation. If we lose the lock, the missile will go stupid.
Launch authorized.
So there you go. We have max range launch authority, meaning we could fire the missile and it has a chance to hit. We're going to get a better chance, though. And we are doing 1,290, so we're hauling the mail now. This missile is going to be very have a lot of velocity, which is good. That's what we want. Now we're getting close to the MAR. Just waiting. We're being patient. We're going to give it a little bit of lead now. Okay, we're inside the MAR. We're going to hold down the trigger now. And Fox 1. Now we're off the throttle, so we can start slowing down a little bit because we don't want to go in too fast. And we're going to hold this lock all the way to hit. And we're going to slow down because we're getting ready to merge with those other targets. We don't want to be going so fast that we can't turn. And splash. Now we're going to hit the unlock, return to search. And I'm going to hit my vertical scan button now. And now I'm going to
launch authorized.
Oh, that was the same target. I'm trying to lock one of these other targets I can see right here. There's another one right here. Let's get it in the vertical scan. So I'm going to hit the lock now. Nope. Nope. Nope.
Launch
there we go. Got
authorized.
it. We're going to switch to an ET. I'm going to give it some, I'm going to lead it just a little bit and fire. And you can see it automatically brought on the electrical optical sensor to fire the ET because that's what it uses. Oh, and it went for flares. We've still got him locked here. Let's fire another ET at him and hope it doesn't eat a flare. And Splash Bandit. Alright, we unlock. Now let's switch to our helmet mount. And now we can see we're on R-73s. These are our high off-bore sight heater missiles. And what we're looking for is our other two bandits out here that are probably trying to get the heck away from us right now because we just killed two of their friends as we were flying towards them. In a normal situation, you would have kept a better eye on them, but here we go. We got one right here. We're going to put the yellow circle on him. Now I'm going to hit the lock button.
Launch authorized.
And now I'm going to fire it right from here at this angle, R-73. That's a Fox 2 again. You can see it really curves off the pylon to make sure it gets a good angle on the enemy. Oh, it went for flares. So let's try that again, except give it a little less of an aspect here. So you can see that missile was going for the target. It just ate a flare, and that's going to happen no matter how good of a shot it is. And Splash Bandit. Alright, we got one more bandit around here. Let's see if we can find him. I think I see him right there in front. Yep, there he is right there. Let's get him locked up with our helmet mount right there. And I'm going to hit the lock.
Launch authorized.
Now let's get closer to this guy. So we're going to go into a lag pursuit, which means we're not chasing to get lead on him. We're trying to get behind him. So we're chasing his tail. Normally if you're trying to get like I could probably get a good shot off right now, but we're trying to practice here a little bit. We're going to learn a thing, right? So here I'm called flying to the elbow. So I'm flying to where he was before I turn into him. Now I'm coming off throttle and I'm going to start slowly turning into him in lag pursuit. Trying to stay in his in the zone behind him. If I just pulled him into the HUD hard, I'd lose a lot of energy and I'd have a high aspect shot. But I'm trying to get kind of more behind him and work my way up to a very high percentage shot. And this is called lag pursuit. So you see he's turning really tight right now. You can see the whole silhouette of his plane from the side. So we're going to let him turn tight. We're going to stay up above him here. And we're going to stay in lag pursuit because he's burning all of his energy off. We're pulling a decently hard here and we're not on the throttle hard because we don't want to overshoot him. We're maintaining our speed and controlling our closure because we don't want to get too close to him right away. We want him to bleed up his energy as we stay in lag pursuit and maintain our good positioning. We're basically in control of this fight now because we could fire an ER, which we have two of them left. I'm sorry, a 73R from any time now because we have a good shot. And as we're doing that, he's just burning every little bit of energy he has, trying to pull hard and jink to make sure we don't have as good a position for the shot. And we're going to let him do that. We still have plenty of speed, plenty of energy. He's losing altitude. He's burning more energy than us. So we're just going to stay right here in the control zone. If you pull too hard, you might lose control of the aircraft. You might go out of plane, as they say. You might get too slow, or you might lose your position, and when they jink back or reverse the turn, you're not ready for it. So we stay right here in lag pursuit and let this guy just bleed everything off. Now he's going to have to pull up.
Pull up.
So now we're going to switch to guns, and we're going to put our crosshair right on him. There you go. Perfect hit with the gun, and he is done. Cut the wing right off there. So basically that was just a really controlled engagement where we stayed in the control zone behind him and stayed in lag pursuit because he still had a lot of energy. So instead of trying to force a shot, we just let him keep burning that energy and controlling our energy. So we were above him. We maintained high speed, which means we have a lot of energy. And we had more altitude, so we had more potential energy because you can trade altitude for energy by gaining speed as you descend down. And we stayed in lag pursuit until he made a mistake. His mistake was he kept trying to make sure we didn't have a good shot. He got slow. He got so low the mountains were in the way, so he had to pull up, which bled off all of his other speed and gave us an easy gunshot. And there you go, folks. That is missiles. That's basics of radar and radar usage in the flanker, and also a gun skill in the flanker and how to try to maintain a lag pursuit. And there's a lot more advanced stuff when it comes to BFM and ACM, which is basic flight maneuvers and combat maneuvers. But just to get you started, knowing what missiles do, how to utilize them, the symbology for them, how to lock in a target and fire is all you need to get started. And our next lesson is going to be on air-to-ground engagement. You might not do that all the time in the flanker, but you can put bombs and rockets and stuff on the flanker, and we're going to utilize those. We're going to go through some stuff like clusters, regular bombs, and also rockets. And I will see you in the skies, pilots.